I will do that. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to talk about a really exciting, I'm going to say new product uh, that's really catching on in this area and catching on in agriculture. Um, like Matt said, it is a product that Matt's going to be carrying, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. I'll let Matt talk to that here maybe after I get a chance to talk a little bit. I see you got a nice spot there, Matt, for your shipment coming in. So Matt will be a retailer for us. My name's Shannon Nadd. I'm from Kansas, is where I reside. Chief agronomist with InSoil Algae, also head of sales. We are. I just want to give just a quick background on our company, since we are new. Talk about where we're based out of, and then maybe just go ahead and start with defining InSoil Algae to kind of bring it from there, and then kind of bring it down to what kind of benefits it'll bring to your farm and to your fields. If he's going to put InSoil Algae in a broad category, it is a biological, but within the biological umbrella, it's a very powerful biostimulant. So I think biostimulants is a word that most folks can relate to. So think of that as a very powerful biostimulant. But I want to make the case today that it's much more than that. It's not just that category. It does a lot more than that. And that's what, within a short amount of time here, I'm hoping to kind of portray to everybody here. And what I mean by that is, as a biostimulant, it does do a lot in the soil as far as soil outcomes go. What's very unique about it, this organism, is it also can act as a foliar application as well. And we're seeing great results of that. I'll talk about that a little bit as well. And what I mean by that is it can be taken up through the roots as an endophyte, but also interplant as an endophyte through the stomata or the leaves. It also interacts very well with other biological products, and it also interacts with the phytosphere in and around your plants, particularly corn and soybeans. Just a few quick facts about our company. We're based out of Charleston, South Carolina. We currently got production facilities in Charleston itself, as well as North Peninsula, Florida. We're getting a lot of volume in sales here in the Midwest area. So we're currently, right now as we speak, looking to put a third production facility somewhere in the Midwest. Looking maybe around that Lincoln, Omaha corridor, maybe down, Kansas or Oklahoma is what we're thinking, just to cut down on shipping and such. So that gives you an idea of our capability. We are OMRI certified. For folks that are in the organic realm, we're labeled in all 50 states as well as Canada. And like I said, here we go. Are you guys able to still hear me all right? What I always like to say is, I'm going to talk about a lot of things that the Chloro Vulgaris can do. I like Matt's term about it being magic. It's not magic. What it is it's a product of creation. Oh, shoot. Yeah, the power strip's still on. I think it. I was going to say that. What you think? You think it'll come back? I can keep talking. Shoot, I don't necessarily need slides, but let me keep going, Matt, or you want to wait for a?
Shannon, there's a case of Coors Light right over there in case you need it.
There's a what?
Case of Coors Light right there.
Yeah, heck yeah. There we go. Oh, yeah, we're in business. All right, I'll keep going. I think it's coming back. Um, Matt used the word magic. It's not magic. What the Clova Garris is, it's a product of creation, and we're certainly not going to take credit for that as a company. In fact, you can get online right now, and you probably read a couple of days about all the benefits of Clova Garris, a live cell green algae, which is what our product is. It's got known benefits to agriculture, human health, animal health. It's very well established. What we've done as a company, though, is two things. One is, well, let me back up a little bit. One is it's been around when our soils were created a long time ago. The Clova Garris strain of live green algae we have and fungi were two of the main components or building blocks of the soils, even where we're standing today here in Iowa. So that's really important to note that is because it's a biological, but when you introduce it to your soil microbiome in your soil, it's recognized and it isn't a foreign something that's not being recognized, rejected, or your soil microbes saying, what's this? As soon as it hits the soil, it's at home. It's literally found here in Iowa, where I live in Kansas, South America, Africa, Europe. It's even found in the permafrost of Antarctica. So I always like to say, as an agronomist, which is my background, it's consistent performance because it is not a foreign material to anywhere you go. Second is, I mentioned that we can't take credit for all the wonderful things that Clova Garris can bring to your fields and your farm. What we did was we found a way, and we got patent that shows this, or a patent on this. We're able to put it in a jug and keep it alive. That's what our company has done. It'd be very expensive and time consuming to grow this and apply it to your fields. What we've done is we can produce it elsewhere, ship it in a jug, and it will stay alive. We found a natural process. There's a natural pathway within the live cell itself, the live cell algae, that we're able to turn on, where it doesn't need to rely on photosynthesis to stay alive. Now, if you put it in sunlight, it's like a plant. It produces photosynthesis in its cell and produces its own food source. But what you can do is you can put it in a jug, stick it in a closet. I usually use one of these closets over here for 2 months, and it will stay alive in the jug in the absence of sunlight. That's what we've done as a company, is jug it, and where it's economical and logistically, very, very handy to apply to your fields. The benefits are stout. I could probably talk for a long period of time on all the benefits. I won't do that. I'll just hit the main highlights of what it can do. If you want to kind of envision, like in a snapshot of what a live cell algae do to your field, you can picture like a fence line itself, which I know a lot of you may be familiar with fence lines. A fence line is a snapshot of a system, soil biology that's perfectly balanced, assuming it was never broke out, and where the microbes are in a state where through nutrient cycling, it's producing everything it needs to keep the system going. Another example is like where I come from in Kansas, we used to have prairies, as tall as the horn on a saddle, 6-7 foot tall. There wasn't one input going into that. CRP is another example. As a consultant in my past career, I know we always saw a lot of really, really big yield benefits, yield bumps for 1 or 2 or 3 years coming out of CRP ground. The corn yields were always tremendously more, and then it kind of faded off. I sometimes wondered back when I was consulting what was going on in there, but it was just a perfect system of microbial activity and nutrient cycling that if you didn't keep that going, it'll fade. So that's what we'll never get back to, that state or that perfect state of microbial production or capability, in production ag. But that kind of gives you an idea of what we can work toward. And that's when you envision algae, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. What it does first, as a biostimulant, it will increase your microbial activity in your soil. I mean, that's a given. We pull a lot of data, a lot of handy tests that you can actually measure the microbial content of your soil. There's a test called a respiration test. The more microbes you have that breathe, they let off CO2. You can measure per volume of soil how much CO2 is being emitted. I mean, so we've run a lot of tests, control versus in-soil treated. you will, if you put INSO algae on your ground, you will raise the respiration score. I'll show you just a taste of that data here in a little bit. That also really is instrumental in the nutrient cycling of your soil. Nutrient cycling is where you get the goodies and the reserves of your soil. Algae will increase your nutrient cycling capability.
I think that is very crucial into where we've done this past year and moving forward. And why do I say that? What's the price of fertilizer? Pretty high. What's the price of our commodity? Kind of low, not where we want this to be. We're going to have to move forward as finding out ways to efficiently use these fertilizers that we're putting out. I like to bring up the fact that the fertilizers that we're using are 60 years old, 70, whatever it is. The year is 2026, and I kind of waited for this to kind of hop in.
Good, perfect timing.
Is the fact that we as farmers, we can't just keep putting more and more fertilizer out. If we did that, we'd all be putting 500 pounds out, getting 500 bushel. It'd be easy, right? Everyone would want to farm. All we do is just put more. It doesn't work that way. It'd be nice, but it doesn't. So we have to figure out how to be efficient on what we apply. And then we also need to figure out the mechanisms such as InSoil, that the new technology that actually takes that fertilizer and makes it into something that your plant will use. That's the part that no one really ever talks about, is the process of how this happens. That is the key to moving forward in how we fertilize and how we farm. The sooner we act on products like this, NanoPro, it's stuff like that that actually is gonna keep a lot of guys in business. We can't keep putting 150 pounds of pea out there. We'll go broke. We can't keep always relying on $6 corn, $7 corn. We got to figure out ways that work for our operations. And the other part too is, we're going to talk about this later, but there's going to be a time where we won't be able to put on fall and high risk. We won't be able to put 400 pounds or 200 pounds of phosphorus out there. There's so much litigation. Our freedom to farm has never been so scrutinized. I don't think ever. They've said that ever since I was in college. Oh, you had lost all. Well, here we are, 25 plus years later. We're still, there's getting to be more and more items put out there to look at how we farm. And I do believe technologies like this are what we can do to help alleviate some of that. We still have to have fertilizer. There's no doubt in my mind. But we have to figure out how we can use that efficiently and still make a profit.
Well said, Matt. 100% agree. Algae can be a very important component of that. A lot of our fertilizer, Matt's right, we're not going to be able to move away from synthetic fertilizer. We need fertilizer. But what we apply, we need to make sure it doesn't get tied up. And if those of you in this room here, or I'm sure you are aware, but when you become more aware of how much your synthetic fertilizer you're applying, a very large percentage of it will get tied up in a form that won't be used. It's very, very inefficient, but a way to create the efficiency is to keep the microbes, to wake up, the phosphorus solubilizers of microbes, whose one task in life is to solubilize phosphorus when it gets in that unavailable form and make it to available form. The mineralizers for the potassium. That's the key. Is we need fertilizer. We just got to increase the efficiency and don't allow it to get tied up, which is what it wants to do. Most fertilizers, if it's not being uptaken by the plant within a very short window, it will be tied up and unusable until a microbe or a microbe of some sort comes along and frees it up. I got to keep moving here. I got quite a bit of data to go through, or not quite a bit of data, some material, and I know I'm on a window here. But besides the stimulation, if I was just going to say, all right, give me one thing that the algae would do, being a powerful biostimulant is one thing, but increasing WEOC, the wettable exchangeable organic carbon is what that stands for. That would be huge in itself. And what that is kind of like when you add algae to your soil, it's going to raise your microbial activity, your soil respiration. We got a lot of data showing that. What it's also going to do, it's going to increase your WEOC. Your WEOC is your organic carbon is the food source for all microbial life in your soil. That there is no other food source. The organic carbon is what microbes need to survive, multiply, and exist. Through what algae does, it's just what it does. I'm going to go back to Matt's magic word, but it's not magic. It was created to do what it's supposed to do, and that's being a very important part of the microbial life in a soil. It increases, it solubilizes carbon into a form that the microbes can use. This is huge. It's the fuel source. It drives the whole system. And what we've seen with the algae is it will feed the existing microbes, but it works very, very well with other biological products. It's got extreme synergism. There's a lot of other great biological products out there. Sometimes I think some of them might run out of fuel or gas, to keep the racehorse microbe or the racehorse, biologicals going. An added food source, which is what WEOC is very, very critical to that. Also, for those of you that put on manure, algae and manure is like a hand in the glove fit. Manure's got so much mouths to feed. When you apply that manure to your soil, there's a lot of microbial life you're bringing there. But if you ever seen manure maybe do good things for a year or two, maybe after repeated applications, you kind of reach a plateau. Maybe some cases even seeing kind of a dip in production. I would say you're running out of food sources out there to keep that manure pop going. In some cases, it might be a balance thing as well, where maybe you just need to, wake up some additional microbes to keep the nutrient balance going. WEOC's very important. The last benefit I'll highlight is, and this is something that we will count on algae will do. So it creates the microbial life increase, the WEOC increase. It will increase your fungal content of your soil. And just like I talked about that fence line, the native prairie, in those systems, the bacteria and the fungal percentages are about even as far as percentage of the total microbes. You need that in order for a system to perform at that level and be in complete balance. You want your fungal and bacteria the same. Every single field, and I can say this, I think, with confidence, including where we're standing, through tillage and modern agriculture, which we've had to do for production, the bacteria percentages are up here, your fungal's down here. It's just what it is. With the algae and there's a test called a PLFA where we can show this. When you apply algae, it brings that fungal component up a little bit. It doesn't do this. That's not realistic. That takes a lot of time. But it'll bump up that fungal percentage a little bit. That in itself is huge as far as getting that cycling going. The fungal network is the communication arm of all your biology in your soil. That's huge, and that's a big contributor to what we see.
I think that's the math.
Yeah, I do too. The fungi is so critical to the system. It connects everything together. Once again, if I just say, hey, what's your algae do? It raises the fungal content of your soil. That would be big. If I was up here and say, hey, it raises the WEOC of your soil, that's big. If I say it's a powerful biostimulant, that's big. You kind of see the idea. It brings a lot to the table and very consistent benefits. It does this through sending molecules. I could talk for a while, but that's how it communicates. I could talk for a while on this one. I like this because Dr. James White did a really nice study for us 2.5 years ago. This is one of the things it does is part of the nutrient cycling efficiency does include nitrogen. And when you put nitrogen to your fields, you want to get the most efficient and as much of that nitrogen into the plant through the roots. Algae helps with that. And this is from Dr. James White's study. These are algae cells, and these are actually nitrogen-fixating bacteria and he was able to capture this, actually riding an algae cell to the root hair. I mean, it's the epitome of efficiency where the algae is attracting the nitrogen-fixating bacteria and literally carrying them to the root hair. So I don't want to get too carried away or spend time, but it's an amazing concept. I get asked sometimes, all right, I'm using a kelp source, I'm using a kelp extract, seaweed, spirulina, whatever the case. Those are good products. The difference is those are extracts or metabolites, produce a nice one-time result. I call it kind of a pop. The difference is that our live cell algae, and if I had a jug here, it comes in a jug and it's green. Those algae are actually swimming around in there. They're actually alive and moving around. And that's the difference is ours is a live cell, literally moving and swimming. And when it hits your soil or your plant, it stays alive for weeks. It's not just a one-time, metabolite of a live organism. It is alive. We try to get a handle on how long it stays alive in the soil. It varies a little bit with conditions, soil temp, and moisture, but it'll stay alive for weeks doing what algae does. And, we feel between 4, 6, maybe 8 weeks or more is what you can expect. So it's doing that, for a long period of time, and that's a big difference. All right, I'm going to get a little bit of the data. The main takeaway from this is the algae is really, really user-friendly from an application window standpoint. It mixes with everything. I mean, there's no compatibility issues at all mixing. We've been in production for 4 years now, commercial sales for 4 years, going in our 5th year. Not one report yet of a plug nozzle. And with my background in consulting, I know how critical that is. We don't plug nozzles, or you're not going to be in business very long, or you're certainly not going to have a happy customer. It doesn't interact with chemistry. There's some things you got to watch if you're putting in furrow with insecticide like a bifenthrin. You got to follow like a real-time mixing study. I mean, it won't interact with the bifenthrin, but just don't mix it or don't add the algae to that mix until you're ready to fire the tractor up in the morning, and just like you would with any other biologicals. But there's no mixing concern. There's a lot of different windows. You can put on with the planter and furrow, your starter. You can put on with your burn down, your pre-plant burn down, your pre-emerge herbicide, post-emerge herbicide. We have a lot of acres go out by airplane or drone or maybe a Hagie, after tassel time on corn. Maybe R2, R3 on soybeans. It's applied with fungicide. Basically, you can work algae into any operation you're currently doing on your farm, and you won't be out, any additional application cost, and it will mix with anything. The data I selected today is, I'm going to show, I decided just to have data that was kind of relevant to this area, and kind of shows you the different combinations of where it could be applied and still see the performance that you're after. So how much more time do I got, Matt? I want to be respectful of I got about, I'm good. All right. One of our base programs in a lot of our geographies is a 2-application program. Put it with the pre-emerge, post-emerge herbicide. That's not our base program, but that's a program that works well. This data here is from Manhattan, Kansas, which is where I live. It's northeast Kansas. We did a lot of work through CROs this past summer. This was a really well-respected CRO from Kansas. Dryland corn. We actually got some rain this summer, which is not always the case for Kansas, but we had some decent corn. Really strong yield performance. Also a really nice, and once again, the algae does a lot, but we had conducted a study for a yield, but then I started getting some questions about, all right, does it improve stand? So I said, well, I think so. So I went back to some of the CROs, I guess it would have been probably early fall, and I said, hey, do you guys happen to take stand counts on those trials you did for us? And of course they did. I mean, that's what's nice about a CRO is they're very detailed in their data collection. And sure enough, on 2 applications of algae, this was broadcast on top of the ground, but through the signaling molecule capability of the algae, it obviously affected and had an effect on the emerging corn plants as they were coming. But as you see here, there was almost 3,000 plants per acre difference by algae. When I was crop consulting, if I went back to my client and said, hey, you got, this field had 3,000 plants per acre difference in this field, he would want to know, or that person would want to know, well, what happened? That's a pretty big increase, especially on a dryland rate like 20,000. So, and then I can show other data like this, but it's just another added benefit of what the algae can do. And, we're up here far enough north in Kansas. Last year is actually a very damp, actually I wouldn't say damp, a very wet, cold spring. So, so a lot of our stands were being stressed. Like I said, not always a problem in Kansas, but with the weather kind of getting crazy, now, it was really cold and wet. And I can't help but think that was a factor here on these numbers, because we had some other stand numbers from Kansas show the same thing. All right, so that's one application. Another one is one application later in the year. So I decided to get some data from not too far from here, up in Albert Lea. This is a one application, some trials on corn, one application later in the year. Couple of the trials were done in mid-June, like you see. One was July 23rd, which was at least tasseling, I believe. I believe the corn was tasseling. So you can see it also, in this case, you're not necessarily getting the soil function in the soil, you're getting the benefit of the algae as a foliar feed. And that's what makes it very unique, is the algae is recognized by the plants, in this case the corn plants, and is being uptaken through the stomata, which I think is amazing when you consider it can do everything it does in the soil, yet still do a foliar performance. And what it does when it's uptaken by as a foliar is, one of many things it does, it increases your chlorophyll content of your plants, which is the more chlorophyll really drives that photosynthesis, produces great results. We do a lot of business in California now, and like the strawberry growers out there in the leafy green, and that's their observation is out there on the strawberries, it's 100% foliar feed of the algae, and our strawberry growers say, hey, it makes the strawberries bigger. The photosynthesis, that's what it does. It makes the leafy greens taller. It drives performance. These are good results. This 19.8 on this particular field is a really, really high clay content field, like really high clay. And when you kind of understand the algae, there is a correlation there of why it showed such a good performance. I mentioned the manure deal. This is a 2-application program broadcast from Clarksville, Iowa. This was actually in 24. It was a little bit different year in 24. I know in Iowa, a little drier. But this is a hog manure field. I know Keith pretty well, or I've gotten to know Keith pretty well. He was one of those guys where, and back in 24, he uses a lot of hog manure. Does anybody know Keith here by chance? If anybody like to talk to Keith, he loves to talk about what he's getting out of the algae. But he started using it in 24, and he was one where the hog manure, he felt like he just needed to get to a Nick's rung. He wasn't, the hog manure was doing good things for his farm, but he felt he kind of stalled out. He started using algae 2 years ago, 2 applications, and he was nice enough to share this map. Now, we're not going to say you're going to get 40 or 50 bushel every time, but I'm going to say you're going to see a nice yield response. If you're using manure of any sort and coupled with the algae, you're going to free up a lot of potential of that manure, a lot. Data like this, I think, speaks for itself. It's just a really nice fit. Algae and manure go hand in hand. Now Keith is for 25. He puts algae on all his acres now. So I lost my trial source from Keith. I am happy that he is using on all of his acres.
That trial there in Clarksville, that farmer will actually talk to you. And he told me that area down there by Clarksville, in southeast of Mason City, has an area there where the ground is very light. He called it sandy, whatever that means. And he told me, Bob, I put out these strips of N-soil algae. By the way, I've been probably coming in this building for 10 years. 10 years? Today's the first day I've ever heard Matt Storm use the word magic. I'm kind of spellbound by it. Is that what you use, this word magic? Yeah. So this farmer down there in Clarksville tells me that he put this into his manure. It's a very light farm hog. And he said, I don't believe I got any rainfall the last third of that growing season. That's the way the yield monitor turned out. If that is magic, is that what you refer to as magic?
What's that? Sorry.
So,
Yes.
Let's talk about magic. Yeah.
13 years ago, I started the BW business. And where this N-soil comes in is 13 years later, me wanted to get my BW acres to the next level. Because everything plateaus. Everything that's good, it goes up to good, and then it stops. It just doesn't continue on further. It stops. Everything that we do good, stop. So I wanted to find something to bring my microbe acres to a whole new level. So this where about 20 of us were involved in this. Mr. Sorby was. We decided to put this in with BW Micro. That's what it went on. 9,700 acres of little bitty trials here and there, including Story. 9,700 acres. When the results came back, this product produced a ROI on corn and beans of 2 to 4 times its price. 2 to 4 times its price. You rarely see that. 2 to 4 times its price. Last year, the sales of this in this area was 9,700 acres. This year, the sales of this product in this area, which I'm calling southern Minnesota and northern Iowa, will exceed 125,000 acres. It's the only thing that I know that is going to grow somewhere between 10 and 20 times last year. So farmers always determine the success of everything. That's ultimately where it goes or it doesn't go. And in a tight farm economy, the support of this technology is incredible. And I believe that's the reason why Matt Sorby used the word magic.
I thought it'd be appropriate to show some roots. This is a really happy grower from South Dakota. If your roots look like this, some good things are going on, and he is an INSO algae user. I wish I could talk more about Guy. Guy is an Iowa farmer. Two reasons is it shows the consistent performance from a soil outcome perspective. Guy's a really meticulous data. He keeps data on his farm, and he was nice enough this past summer to pull some soil samples on. He uses INSO algae on all his farm, but he segregated 60 acres where he did not put INSO algae. Like I said, he uses biologicals. He's an example of a biological user, I think, for the last 5 years. But and I'll kind of move through this a little bit, but there's 2 or 3 things here. This is a field where he did a standard biological program, and he just had 60 acres where he didn't put the algae on. The rest of the field he put on 2 applications, 2 broadcast applications of InSoil. The WEOC score is really important. He started at 179. That's a great WEOC score. I'm used to seeing 60 or 70. I'm going to go and plug BW Fusion, but he's a BW Fusion customer. If I was selling BW Fusion and I say, hey, I got a guy that's using BW Fusion, start at 179, that should sell a lot of biologicals. That's a great number. But what reason I point that out is he started incorporating soil algae and he got to a 213. So even if your WEOC's up here, there's always more room for improvement, and that's where I think that fence line analogy, or the CRP or the prairie analogy is. There's always room for improvement. I mean, even if you're up here, it's like, well, my soil health is kicking butt. I've reached where I can reach. I think data like this is something to think about. Is there's always more you can do to get more of your soil about what it's capable of doing. What's stupid about Guy is he gets excited about data like this. This is a Haney test, great test. But he's seen numbers like this. His percent phosphorus, the H3As measures the critters that are responsible for solubilizing phosphorus. And he got real excited about this data. I mean, a 25 is not bad, but see what the InSoil did with 2 applications. He got I'm not even sure what a factor that is. That's a factor of several fold of 160. Guy sees that number. He doesn't use phosphorus anymore. This past summer, he said, I'm going to stop using phosphorus. He's growing great corn. His data's showing he doesn't need phosphorus anymore. Now, he's still putting nitrogen and potassium, but he's starting to bring his nitrogen load down a little bit, what he applies. And why he's doing that is this SLAN number is a measure of the nitrogen cycling capability of your soil. It's increasing. And then he's even starting to wake up his potassium mineralizers. Potassium critters are harder to wake up. It takes more time. The phosphorus, we can wake up in a year's time. Nitrogen, same thing, calcium and such. But anyway, Guy's doing some good things. I got to keep moving here. But that WEOC number is important. This is that respiration score. Even where Guy had some really good soil health, you see how his respiration, even with where he was at, his his microbes breathing capacity increased. And I'm going to flash one more. The guy was nice enough to do another test for us. He took another field and took 2 different snapshots. This is a different field from last year. This is incredible. But on this particular field, he went from 180 and 191 WEOX, which are good, to 221 and 207, which, when I said we raised, the algae raises WEOX, this is a testament. Look how he woke up his phosphorus solidifiers. Potassium's waking up. So you kind of see, I'm going to be really quick here. This is another test, third party, Rise Bio out of Ohio. Once again, I can show these all day long, but I won't. Consistently, the WEOX and the respiration scores go up. So a couple more things, and I'll kind of wrap it up. Yield matters. That particular study had 5 bushels, which is Russell Hedrick did a really nice trial for us. This demonstrates the synergy between algae and other microbial products, other biological products. Russell was nice enough to do this study this past year. The takeaway here isn't always the numbers, but it's the stair-step effect. On Russell's farm, this is the control, his yield. He used a vermicompost. This is actually out of Kansas. Got a nice bump out of it. InSoil had a nice show. This microbial product had a nice show. I can tell you what it is, but I decided not to put it on my slide. But what's critical here is when you add the InSoil plus the vermicompost, it's that synergy effect. It makes both better because the algae likes to have biology to work with to kind of ramp up. And then with the other microbial product, you kind of get the story that it's a nice fit to insert into your biological program, kind of like Guy's example. Russell did another really nice study that has gotten a lot of attention, but this is a one-time, now that previous slide for Russell's, that was one application of InSoil. I don't know if I mentioned that. So that was one application inserted to his biological program. This is also a one-shot program, late corn. The corn here is obviously tasseled. It's the fungicide window. He had a control. He didn't have the rust like you guys had here last year, but he still had some decent disease control there in North Carolina. Control, obviously he got his money's worth out of his Veltima, but when he added the InSoil to his Veltima, phenomenal results. And Russell's been using our algae for 3 seasons. I don't know, does anybody know Russell Hedrick? He's kind of a celebrity. He thinks he's a celebrity. I don't tell him that because he gets a big head, but he's well known. And I talked to Russell after he gave us results because we actually didn't know he was doing this trial. We knew about the benefits of InSoil at tassel. We're still learning how much impact it has on a fungicide application. This was one of the data points we have to show what it can do. But he said, yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I just wanted to kind of show you guys what it's capable of doing. So considering InSoil with your fungicide is certainly on the table. I'm going to kind of wrap it up, but we had some, with soybeans as well. This is a nice trial through a CRO here in Iowa near Dunkerton. 4 bushel bump. Some really nice looking beans, treated versus not. We get excited about Milo in Kansas, but I won't bring it up here. I guess I'll kind of leave it at that. I guess kind of a final thought is it's something to look at on your farm. Matt's going to carry it. It's working very well in this part of the world. Your climate, your soil type, something to consider. Strong RI, and then, like I said, it's a product. When you apply it, it's going to produce consistent performance, and I think that's really important in biological land. Anything else, Matt, or you got a question?
Any of you guys in here had a wife?
I do, yeah.
And this lady's been living with me for 44 years. And over our marriage of 44 years, she's collected about a dozen of these enormous